Ratusan warga mendatangi lokasi tenda darurat pengungsi Rohingya di Desa Kulangbate, Kabupaten Pidi, Aceh. Warga menggelar aksi unjuk rasa meminta pengungsi Rohingya dipindahkan dari desa mereka. Warga menolak keberadaan pengungsi ini karena dimanfaatkan untuk kepentingan UNHCR yang berkedok kemanusiaan.
Kita mohon kepada pemerintah ambil sikap tegas untuk menghindar cemburu sosial yang lebih besar lagi di kalangan masyarakat kita. Pindah mereka dari Aceh. Itulah tuntutan daripada masyarakat.
Warga Aceh menolak Rohingya karena keberadaan mereka sudah terlalu banyak di Aceh.
Pindah mereka dari Aceh. Itulah tuntutan daripada masyarakat.
Ya pemirsa, beberapa kasus menyangkut pengungsi, kemudian juga pencari suaka yang ada di Indonesia atau bisa kita katakan terdampar di Indonesia saat ini. Jumlahnya juga mencapai ribuan, sebagian merupakan para pengungsi dari Rohingya terutama, terkait dengan bagaimana penindasan dan juga upaya genosida yang dilakukan oleh pemerintah junta militer Myanmar di negaranya, juga berdampak kepada kondisi atau wilayah Indonesia yang mendapat atau kedatangan dari para pengungsi tersebut. Beberapa kasus juga ditemukan, bahkan dari kepolisian sendiri saat ini sedang menetapkan lebih dari 1 orang sebagai tersangka dalam dugaan tindak pidana perdagangan orang atau TPPO yang menyangkut atau menjadikan sebagian dari para pengungsi ini adalah sebagai korban. Tapi kalau misalnya kita juga bisa komparasi terkait dengan bagaimana reaksi dari warga negara Indonesia, terutama yang saat ini circulating di media sosial, sebagian menyayangkan, kemudian juga mempertanyakan bagaimana sikap dari pemerintah Indonesia terkait dengan keberadaan para pengungsi ini. Apakah memang kita harus menyatakan diri sesuai dengan Undang-Undang Dasar 1945 sebagai bangsa yang ingin menghapuskan penjajahan dan juga mengatasnamakan kemanusiaan untuk menerima para pengungsi ini di negara kita dan juga memberikan kesejahteraan layaknya manusia biasa, atau kita juga harus menentukan sebuah sikap terkait dengan bagaimana pemerintah Indonesia dapat melindungi warga negaranya sendiri tetapi tidak menafikan bahwa memang kita harus melindungi sesama manusia, terutama dari upaya-upaya untuk pembersihan etnis dan juga ras manusia secara keseluruhan. Namun kalau misalnya kita bicara mengenai statement yang juga dikeluarkan oleh UNHCR dari PBB sendiri terkait dengan pengungsi dan juga pencari suaka ini, di mana it doesn't take much to be a refugee. It can be your race or beliefs and it's enough. Jadi kita tidak bisa, atau ras, agama dan juga dari mana kalian berasal itu ya tidak bisa menjadikan Anda aman, itu juga bisa menjadikan Anda pengungsi atau pencari suaka di negara lain. Kita akan bahas lebih dalam terkait dengan kasus ini bersama dengan UNHCR Representative for Indonesia and Mayman yang sudah bersama saya pagi hari ini. Good morning, ma'am.
Selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi. How are you? Have you been? I'm fine.
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine too. I hope the city of Jakarta or the climate right now makes, I mean, it doesn't affect your conditions or health.
No, not at all. I adore the rainy season, and in general, I adore Indonesia and Jakarta. So I'm very happy here.
Glad to hear that. Ma'am, we are about to talk regarding to the refugees and the asylum seekers here in Indonesia, regarding to the case of Rohingya refugees in Aceh. What do you see? Because there is a significant influx of Rohingya refugees into Aceh, and it caused a commissions or a community rejection from Aceh. Yeah. How does UNHCR respond to this kind of situation?
You're right that the last weeks, since actually mid-November, we have had a higher number of boat landings of Rohingya refugees than previous years. So previous years we have
From
had...
what years?
Like 2020, 21, 22, beginning 23. But normally it has been 1 to 3 boats that have landed. But since mid-November, we have had 11 landings.
Not only on Aceh?
There is 10 of them that have been in Aceh. And then the last one we had on the 31st of December, early morning, was in Deli Serdang in North Sumatra. So just south of Aceh. So yes, it is a higher number of boats. It is a higher number of Rohingya refugees. We have approximately 1,750 now. 750. But it's also important to keep in mind that it is a manageable situation. It is less than 2,000. This said, it is fully understandable that Indonesians and Achenese communities, in this case, are concerned that, of course, that if there are suddenly more foreigners that are coming and you are unsure what is happening, that is a perfectly human reaction. What UNHCR is working on together with IOM and other partners in Aceh, together with the local communities and together with the local authorities, it is to manage the situation, because it is a manageable situation as long as the refugees can be hosted in a suitable site. We can, together with partners, we will provide the sufficient assistance to stabilize the situation, including involving the local communities, so they can also benefit from the situation. So if you want me to continue a little bit more to explain about the situation there is currently in Aceh. So yeah, so currently we have the refugees hosted in 8 sites.
8 sites?
8 sites,
all over
8 locations. No, only the Rohingya refugees that I mentioned, 1,750, are currently hosted in 8 sites.
Okay, 8 sites.
So they are, so 7 of them are in Aceh, and one of them is the one in Deli Serdang that I mentioned in North Sumatra. Now, out of those 7 sites, only 2 of them have been formally designated. So formally designated by the authorities, and that is one in Minarai and Piti, and one ex-immigration building in Luxembourg.
2 from 7.
2 from
8.
2 from 7 in Aceh.
Okay.
And the thing is that so the 5 other sites in Aceh, and also including the one in North Sumatra, are not suitable sites. So for example, you will have, and they are now, over 300, I believe, in a beach area, like in a coconut field, bordering the beach.
Stranded?
No, but they are being hosted by in that area of the coconut field, in PD area, and we are then with our partners working to provide food, to ensure wash facilities, and also engage with the local communities there. But you can see that having refugees residing in a coconut field, it's not a good location, right? So there are other sites that have been identified, but we have not been able, together with the local authorities, to transfer the refugees.
Why?
Because there are sometimes, local protests that are appearing when we want to do those transfers, and when the local authorities want to do those transfers. So we have a situation where a good number of the refugees, they reside in unsuitable locations.
There's an escalation also from Aceh people. The escalations, and you said about the local protest?
Yeah, so the thing is, we have a situation where refugees are kept in unsuitable sites, and that makes it more difficult to manage, and that can also give rise to local protests, because the situation is more difficult to manage. But when we want to transfer refugees to other sites where they could be where the situation could be better stabilized, where it could be better managed, and many of those sites are actually quite far away from local villages. But there would still be a few protests that would pop up. And instead of maybe managing those protests, you know, engaging in a dialogue, you know, engaging in explaining why the refugees are here, there is an atmosphere of sort of that doesn't give good conditions for a dialogue. So the refugees are not transferred to those more suitable sites. So we only have 2 suitable sites now in Aceh, which is the one in Pidi and the one in Luxemawe. Minaraya in Pidi and the ex-immigration building in Luxemawe. But they are, of course, overcrowded.
Because too much to be transferred.
Yeah, yeah. We still need really to remember that it's less than 2,000 people. It is manageable.
Not like what happened in Bangladesh.
Exactly.
There's almost 20,000?
There's 1 million.
1 million in Bangladesh?
1 million.
Okay.
And there's 105,000 in Malaysia. And there's also a high number in India and Thailand. So, and we need also to go back to the root causes. Why is it the Rohingya refugees are leaving Bangladesh, and why did they leave in the first place Myanmar? And that is because genocide and because of frequent conflict. So the Rohingya people have been subject to persecution and
killings, mass killing spree.
Absolutely, and they are stateless. So in Myanmar, they adopted in 1982 a new citizenship law, and that citizenship law listed around 35 ethnicities in Myanmar that would be considered eligible to the Myanmar citizenship, and they excluded the Rohingya.
Only Rohingya?
Only Rohingya. So, and they have lived in Myanmar for centuries. So that is the basis. You have a legal basis, and you have a factual, a practical basis, because they are being persecuted, they are being killed, they are not giving ID cards, they don't have any freedom of movement, they can't give their kids to school, and so forth in Myanmar. So they have, in 2017, they fled because there was a ongoing attack against the Rohingya and fighting, so it forced them to flee again to Bangladesh. It's not the first time. There have been previous exodus of Rohingya refugees from Myanmar to Bangladesh. So those nearly 1 million that are now in Cox's Bazar in the camps in Bangladesh, they've been there, vast majority of them, since 2017, and some of them were even there before. They are in the camps. The humanitarian assistance have been reduced. And there is also, sort of in general, a deteriorating humanitarian situation in the camps.
In Bangladesh?
In Bangladesh. So also the prospect of a voluntary return, because of course the ideal would be for the Rohingya refugees to be able to return to Myanmar in safety and dignity. But
so
that's
the goals. There is also the goals from the United Nations. The Rohingya have to fly back, have to go back to Myanmar.
I would rather say it like this. The ideal solution for the Rohingya is to be able to return to Myanmar in safety, and in dignity. So that those 2 key words are important, safety and dignity. For the time being in Myanmar, the conditions are not there for any safe or any dignified return, because actually the situation in Myanmar is deteriorating. Since end October, you can look at the news, there is intensification of fighting, and all the discussions there have been on creating the conditions for voluntary return of the Rohingya refugees have not been maintained. Instead, armed conflict has taken over. So looking at that, so the prospect for a voluntary and safe return is not there. It's further away in the distant future. You have a deteriorating situation in Cox's Bazar, in Bangladesh. So the Rohingya are, India, also difficult. There is no place in the region here that are really allowing Rohingya refugees to live any meaningful life.
And peacefully for the...
No one.
And no other countries are providing
if there are some resettlement now starting from Bangladesh. So the United States has started to do resettlement from Cox's Bazar. 1 million refugees are there.
Cox's Bazar.
Cox's Bazar, that's the name of the camps.
In Bangladesh.
Yeah. So there is around 1 million there, right? United States of America and other resettlement countries like Canada, some European countries and so forth, they cannot take 1 million. And we also need to remember that we have millions of refugees in the world.
Not only Rohingyas.
Not only Rohingyas.
Syrians, Palestinians,
Ukrainians, Afghans. So if you look at the wars, you know, the human rights violation, the armed conflict that are generating refugee movements, the characteristic the last couple of decades is that new wars are started, but no wars are ended.
Okay.
So Syria still continuing to generate refugees, right? There's no prospect for return there. You have also a lot of concerns and a lot of human rights violation, persecution taking place in Eastern Horn of Africa. You have Ukraine, ongoing armed conflict. You have, in Afghanistan, there's also not prospect for return. You have Myanmar. United States took around, I think, 62,000 resettled.
From Rohingyas?
No, from different nationalities around the world. But one could ask, couldn't more countries do the same? Right?
Not only certain countries.
Not only, why should it only be United States of America?
Okay.
Why can't other countries welcome refugees who are people that do not have safety, they don't have a place to call home, they can't get an ID card, they can't get passport. Why can't we help them? Why can't all countries in the world do their bit? Why can't we share the responsibility? It would be, you know, we have, I think it's right, what do we have now? 192 nations in the world today. More could do more, right? What do we have now? 192 nations in the world today. More could do more, right? And we also have countries in this region that are performing very well in many different sectors. Economically, socially, defense-wise, right? We are seeing countries in the region that are becoming stronger and stronger.
Because not all countries that ratify the International Convention on the Refugees, but we talk more about that later. But what I am asking you more about the blueprints. Is there any blueprints created by the United Nations regarding to how on the countries should provide, should shelter all the asylum seekers and refugees? Is there any better blueprint on how the government should react?
We have seen a very good approach in Indonesia, where we see the Indonesian authorities allow the Rohingya refugees to disembark. And that is a very, very welcoming position to take.
So there's a good example that our government does.
Absolutely. Indonesia is a prime example, is the best example in the region on allowing Rohingya refugees to disembark. It's not like other countries in the region who push them back and send them on. So that is a very welcoming gesture that we appreciate greatly. And what we have done in the past is that we have worked both with national and local authorities and local communities to identify locations where the refugees could be temporarily hosted, and that has worked. So we actually have a blueprint in Indonesia itself, the challenge that we have is what I explained before, is that we don't have enough suitable sites right now, but it is possible to manage. And I truly hope that in the coming days and weeks, because of course this is something that we continue to discuss with the authorities and the communities, that we will find a solution.
Okay. When was the last time the UNHCR do the contacts with the local authorities?
But we do it daily. We do it daily. We meet them at the local level up in Aceh and North Sumatra. We meet daily, several times a day. And here, I am regularly at meetings also with national authorities. So and we discuss on the phone. We meet. It's ongoing.
How does the dialogue, have on the change for them? Because there's still a rejection and it's circulating on the social media about how we have to treated them. How do you see the education or literation along with the local community, local people of Aceh receiving the refugees and asylum seekers there? Right now.
So you're right. There has been a very unfortunate, and which is it's a completely new development in Indonesia, and that is the campaign of mis and disinformation and hate speech against UNHCR and against Rohingya refugees. And that is something that started towards end November. It has gone down now, but it's still popping up. And what we have seen, you would probably have noticed there are many Indonesian media that have also investigated what is and who is behind this and how it's being organized.
So you see, it's an organized campaign.
No, it is an organized campaign.
From where?
But that's very difficult to say. I don't know. Before mid-November, I hardly knew what a bot was. I hardly knew what trolling meant. Trolling. It's a new world. I'm not familiar with that. I'm on social media, but I'm not an expert in this, far from it. But I have had to learn, and so has our team. And we are working, and we are grateful for the Indonesian media that now, they have investigated, and they have looked into who and what is behind this. And I think that what it has shown is that, first of all, and of course, many know this, the social media is a world apart. We are in the real world, right? We sit here, we are material, we are tangible. The social media
is another
planet.
Dimension.
Completely, it's another dimension. And it is it's not possible to control. So I cannot tell you, and I don't think anyone can tell you how big was and is this mis and disinformation campaign and hate speech against the Rohingya refugees. How large was it? It's because we don't have eyes, enough eyes and enough, we can't antennas.
Go there. We can't go there daily to check on them
we will not do anything else. And there are many messages that are sent on multiple platforms that we don't even know, right? We catch some and others catch others. But what we have seen is that, and that's why we can say, and why also several medias have concluded that you have had coordinated messages of hate posted on several social platforms, right? So TikTok, Twitter, Instagram.
So many on TikToks.
many on TikTok. So this has been done simultaneously, and also what is evident is that the content that has been developed and produced, it's professionally made. These are not
even the key opinion leaders or influencers, so-called influencers of the social media,
the buzzers and all that. No, but the content, the fake videos that you see that are claiming outrageous things. They are professionally made. It's not made by a local villagers or a local fisherman in Aceh.
Here.
I don't know where they made. They can be made in many places. That's, you know, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't have the expertise to go in and check
The IP address.
IP address and whatever it's called. I don't know. And I don't think I don't know if there's anyone that can check that or have the resources and the interest. Of course, we have the interest to find out, but we also need to remember who we are. We are humanitarian organization, right? We are just an international humanitarian organization. We are UN agency. We are the UN Refugee Agency. We were created in 1950. We are present in over 130 countries in the world. We were put into this world by UN member states to work closely with governments to provide international protection and find durable solutions for refugees. This is why we are here. And that's it. We don't have any other expertise. So, you know, when we also hear these sort of statements like, okay, UNHCR, you know, you should transfer the refugees. That's sometimes what we hear that, both on social media and also in the real world. Why don't you just transfer the refugees?
Can it?
No, we cannot. We cannot. How can UNHCR decide where refugees should be hosted, right? Those are foreigners. They have a international recognized legal status because they are refugees, but we are not part of the Indonesian government, obviously. We are an international humanitarian organizations that are working here with and on behalf of the government, but we cannot decide where refugees should be, right? But once we are told, okay, you can take the refugees there, we will do so, and we will work hard to make it a good situation. And this is what that we do in Aceh and North Sumatra. You know, we have teams going there every day and so forth.
So basically, if Indonesian people or the Indonesian people or local people from Aceh and the Liserdang for right now wants the Rohingya people to go back to their country safely and with dignity, as you said before, the Indonesian government should do more on diplomatically dialogue with the Myanmar's government about the ethnicities of Rohingyas status there. That is the only options or only alternative solutions.
That is the best solution, but that will take a long time. And that cannot be Indonesia alone that will do that. You will need to have many countries involved.
Is there is there any international dialogues that happens or be done with the United Nations help with the Myanmar?
I mean, there are many initiatives that are being taken, and also when Indonesia had the chair for ASEAN, you know, they did a lot of initiatives and they engage in dialogues with all parties in Myanmar, which is something that, again, where Indonesia sets a good example that more should follow, because if you want to support and promote peace, you need to involve all parties, all actors, right? But it takes time. So the question is, meanwhile, when the Rohingya can't go back in safety and dignity, what should we do? Ignore them?
As a human being?
Should we ignore them? Should we let them sink on the sea? Should we not help them? That's the question, and that is for all countries in the region, for all human beings that are seeing this. What would you do? Wouldn't you want to do the right thing? Wouldn't you want to save human lives? That's the question.
What do you see on Indonesia's government? What hope or expectations regarding to the?
I think that a lot of progress has been made, and I think that we are continuing to be in dialogue and to discuss what to do next, to find suitable sites, to engage and stabilize the situation in the unsuitable sites. Because of course you have refugees that are staying in unsuitable sites for weeks. So we can't just ignore them, right, and the communities that live there. So we continue to engage with all parties And we hope that in the coming weeks there will be, some suitable sites identified where
like
we can transfer.
Like an island, inhabitable island?
Indonesia consists of islands, if you want, right? So bigger and smaller islands.
It's an ideal, but yeah, probably an utopia alternatives or solutions that we can make.
There's no need to begin to think about small islands, and I think that we already have 2 suitable sites in Aceh. There are other sites that have been identified where we have suitable shelters. I think that we should go ahead and take them, and I think that the government are also discussing this.
Maybe we should talk more about the asylum refugees and the asylum seekers and the refugees, because this is not happening only on the Rohingya ethnicities, but also from people or ethnicities that being damaged or a collateral damage from the wars happens in Ukraine or Russians, Ukraine versus Russians, and Israel versus Hamas. But in the next segment, ma'am.
Okay.
Pemirsa, kita akan kembali membahas terkait dengan bagaimana mungkin dari UNHCR memandang sikap dari Indonesia, dan lagi-lagi sesuai dengan tadi pernyataan dari Madam Representative from the UNHCR terkait dengan bagaimana seharusnya warga Indonesia ini bisa bersikap selayaknya manusia sesuai dengan kaidah atau yang aturan yang ditetapkan oleh Undang-Undang Dasar 1945, bahwa kita bangsa Indonesia sangat ingin menghapuskan segala bentuk penjajahan di muka bumi. Mungkin itu yang menjadi salah satu pertimbangan bagi kita untuk bisa bersikap dalam menatap kasus-kasus yang berkaitan dengan pengungsi dan juga pencari suaka ini. Segmen berikut akan segera kembali setelah jeda pemirsa. Tetaplah bersama kami dalam One on One. Terima kasih pemirsa, Anda masih bersama kami dalam One on One dan masih bersama dengan perwakilan dari UNHCR atau the representative from the UNHCR regarding to the refugees, Miss Mayman. And Mayman, ma'am, there's a certain conditions in the Aceh regarding to the Rohingya ethnicities, the refugees, that also concerning to the human trafficking. How do the United Nations see? Because all the refugees, the asylum seekers that shattered all around the world are prone to the human trafficking cases.
Yeah. So human trafficking is a crime that should be combated. It's an international crime. It's a national crime. Also, Indonesia has an anti-trafficking law, and are also working very hard to combat that. And it's a crime that should be addressed and should be combated. And what traffickers do when they do their crimes is that they deceive people, right? So they tell people, okay, and they can do that with any individual, including, refugees and non-refugees. And then they will...
Especially people who's in needs.
Exactly. So when you have a refugee that's desperate and you have a person, a trafficker that says, okay, I will take you to this country. You just need to pay me this and this. Right? And then when he takes the person to that country, he put the person into a forced labor camp, for example.
Is there
for example, trafficking.
Is there any visible camp that happens in the world? And
okay, I definitely not in Indonesia. I haven't, but I don't have the full picture of what is happening in other countries. But what I'm saying this example to explain the difference between smuggling and trafficking. So trafficking is something that is done where people are deceived and abused. Violence is often involved. But smuggling, it's, you have refugees that, when they want to flee from their country, for example, their country of origin, there is an armed conflict, they're being targeted, they're being persecuted, but they don't have any passports. They can't get a visa. Legal. So, because most countries in this world, they demand passports, right? I mean, all countries, they demand passports. They demand visas in order to manage the movement, right? So they will detain and they will not allow refugees to enter who is seeking safety. You see the problem. So they will pay the refugees will pay smugglers to be facilitated to cross borders.
More easily.
Yeah, and some of these smugglers are also, you know, many are abusing the refugees, right? And they take a lot of money. But the big problem is, the root of the problem is that national states in today's world, they don't help refugees. They see refugees as a problem and not as people who flee violence and who are vulnerable and who are in need.
They don't give any dispensation to them, those who in needs, more needs than us as fellow citizens.
Yeah.
So there are victims.
Yeah.
They are victims, and we should provide shelter and things that concerning their victims because they are victims. Also in Indonesia. But how do you see the government react to this, Rohingya people that are victims of people smuggling and the human trafficking cases?
No, but I see it's you know, similar to what we discussed before. I see Indonesia doing the absolute right thing because they are allowing people to disembark. So they are allowing people access to safe territory. Right? They are not pushing the boat back to stay with, you know, the smugglers and potential traffickers on the boat, right? They allow them to disembark, which is the first thing that is needed. And then, you know, when they are in a safe territory, and we can have a suitable site, and we can give them basic assistance, which will be provided by UNHCR and other international organizations. Because it's also clear that there are people in need, still Indonesians, that are in need of support, right? And including in Aceh. So what we want to do, it is to working with and for the local communities and make sure that they also benefit from the presence of the refugees.
Do the refugees or asylum seekers should assimilate more with the local communities, local people?
I think the most important is that we recognize that they are here. We recognize that they cannot go back. And that we work together to stabilize their situation, that we give them the basic needs, provide for the basic needs. We ensure that they are in sites that are meeting minimum standards. So we don't keep them in a port area, we don't keep them on a beach, we don't keep them in a coconut field, right? Yeah. Because that will also be disturbing for the local communities, right?
Now, enlighten me more, ma'am, about the source of the providings.
Yeah.
The governments, should we, the governments of Indonesia, use the money, or there is a certain amount of money that provided by the Indonesian government or authorities for them,
so
but not taking it back? So
currently, Indonesia do already a lot by allowing them to disembark. It's not all about money, right? It's not all about paying for their food and their wash facilities and some plastic sheetings and tents. It's not all about that. But Indonesia, they actually allow them to disembark. That is huge. That is something you cannot pay for money, right? So they already do that. And I don't think that at this stage it is very sort of urgent for Indonesia to begin to sort of allocate finances to this. I mean, of course, it would be welcome. It's not that. But I think Indonesia has a lot of other sectors and things to deal with. And UNHCR, IOM and others are here to work in tandem with the authorities. And we can provide for the assistance. But of course, we would like Indonesia to to continue to see themselves and want to build up a real strong refugee management system, so that they can be an example to other countries in the world, in the region in particular, so that the whole situation of particular Myanmar can be dealt with.
Okay, but not citizenship. We cannot give them a citizenship of Indonesia.
I mean, if they want, you know, the national state, the state of Indonesia can do their sovereign state. They can decide, you know, whatever
benefits the country.
If they, you know, Indonesia has citizenship law, right? So, but I don't think at this moment there should be any discussions because we are not there yet. We are still in a phase where many Rohingya refugees, they are currently hosted in unsuitable sites. Okay, so they live in a coconut field.
They can't do basic needs.
No, we are providing for their basic needs.
But not cannot work, cannot learn
work.
something.
But it's also not ideal to live in a coconut field, right? You know, why? Let us take them to a shelter that is available, and if it's in need of repair, it will be repaired, and then, you know, they can reside there. You know, they can maybe begin to get some education. You know, we have another characteristic of those refugees we've got is majority are women and children. So,
including in Indonesia, how many percentage of women and children?
But it's over. I think we're up at 65%.
Majority of them.
Yeah. So just to say that, you know, so every day passes, and if you are, you know, living in an unsuitable site, it's you know, we can manage to provide food, the very basic activities. But what about education? What about teaching some subjects to those kids, right?
Okay.
What about pregnant women? What about, you know, these are human beings. They are not like robots that say, "Ooh, we will stop being a human being for the next couple of months," right? You know,
they're still a human being.
Yeah, and
that needs to do, or that
live, and we can manage the situation. My concern is that the last weeks, because it has not been fully sort of managed, the situation has appeared more, I mean, it has appeared chaotic when there's no need for it to appear chaotic.
We can prevent it.
No, we can just manage the situation. It's not a problem, right? But that is also not to say that more information needs to be provided to the local communities to explain why are these Rohingya coming here? What does it mean for your community? How can we work together, right? And we are trying to do our best on that. But we should probably also do more of that, right? Because it is perfect, as I said before, it is perfectly normal, and you see that around the world, that people have concern when there are, you know, refugees arriving. Okay. It can be a cause of concern, and we need to acknowledge that people have their right to question.
We cannot give them deadlines, the refugees and asylum seekers, deadlines on how they should stay here for some periods.
We can maybe give Myanmar
deadline.
Why should it? Why? And this is also, we are focusing on the victims, right? When we should actually focus on the ones that have the power to address and to solve the root causes, right? This is what we should do. And meanwhile, continue to address the situation in Aceh and other locations, and provide the minimum assistance and support while we work to find solutions.
Okay. We have to give the deadlines to the government that has the authority. Is there any urgency for us, Indonesian government, to rectify the international conventions of the refugees, or is it enough right now?
I think that it would be a very constructive step for Indonesia to take to rectify the 1951 convention. Indonesia has rectified several human rights treaties and conventions, and it would be natural to follow that tradition and rectify the 1951 convention.
Is there any special conditions or special situations that have to be fulfilled by the government to rectify the...
There is no specific sort of condition to fulfill. It will provide Indonesia with an exposure, and they will become they will participate in UNHCR's work, and at more higher levels also, and can influence.
It's a positive precedence that we can show to the global or international world.
Yeah, and it will give Indonesia access to influence how refugee policies are being shaped. So that is a very important part, especially when you look at Indonesia, which is such a strong country and is a regional and global leader. There are many that are saying signing the 1951 convention will make Indonesia pull like a country where they will attract more refugees, but that's not the case. If you look at for example, Philippines have signed the 1951 convention. Right. There's no high numbers that go to Philippines. You have Pakistan that have a large number of Afghan refugees. They haven't signed the convention. So there's no sort of logic behind that, right? But it will be better for states to be part of these conventions that systematize and put into systems how to manage issues and problems for the given state. And in today's world, we have nearly 40 million refugees, right? And there are many countries that have refugees, and there are many countries that are a member and have ratified the 1951 convention, but there are also some that haven't.
But still, the refugees came to their countries, and the local governments
exactly
do their bit.
Because also that the principles that are underpinning the 1951 conventions are ancient principles of humanity. It is just written up in a legal convention. Right, but it is ancient instinct and ancient principles that are underpinning it.
To protect each other as a human being.
Exactly.
Especially those who's in need. Terima kasih banyak. Thank you very much for your insights and also time in our one-on-one special.